you ever had a dream that you weren't sure it was a dream and you could not really determine if you were awake or not? This is Janáček's Taras Bulba coming right up on Conducting Bills. Hi, I'm Gianmaria. I'm a conductor and a composer, and welcome to this episode of Conducting Bills, a series where we take a repertoire piece or a part of it and we analyze it from the conductor's point of view. In this episode, we'll dive into the death of Andrei, the first movement of Janáček's Taras Bulba, its structure, its phrasing, its magnetic harmonies, and of course, we'll have some technical tips. As usual, you can jump through different sections of the video by clicking on the links present in the description below. Now, let's begin! Leos Janáček is a chapter on his own in the history of music. He's one of those composers who came out of nowhere and left like a comet. One cannot really trace a school he belongs to or a composer who followed in his footsteps. In that respect, it's much easier to see a continuation between Mahler and Schoenberg, for example. Sure, it's often said that Janáček was heavily influenced by Dvorak, but that is limiting, and defining Janáček as the natural musical prosecution of Dvorak is inaccurate. While I'm not trying to diminish the importance of previous composers in Janáček's music, he is a composer who found his own unique language that nobody could anticipate and nobody would try to imitate afterwards. I remember the first time I had to deal professionally with his music. It was back in 2003 during the Bar Music Festival dedicated to Janáček himself, and I was an assistant at the American Symphony Orchestra, and I had to prepare one of his operas titled Osud, Fate. I'll admit that it was everything but easy. But then when I started digging a bit deeper and learned that in his lines he was actually trying to imitate the human speech, things started to make a lot more sense. And even more when the relationship between his seemingly weird harmonies and the text became evident. Janáček's harmony is not straightforward, at least not at first hearing or sight. But the more you go into it, the more you start recognizing his fingerprints and a whole new world is revealed. One common element to his writing relies on the use of 9th and 13th within regular chords. Janáček's gift is not expressed in inventing new chords, but in exploiting new angles of the old chords, making them sound new. And he does this through voicing, through orchestration, and through the addition and or subtraction of certain notes within a chord. And we can see this right at the beginning of Taras Bulba. Taras Bulba is among the most significant works for orchestra alone by Janáček. Composed between 1915 and 1918, so during World War I, this work expresses the composer's admiration for the indomitable spirit of the Russian people. At the same time, he makes clear the will of his compatriots for a Czech nation free from the domination of the Austrian Empire. Now, Janáček was a fan of Russia. He even founded a Russian club in Brno in 1897 and then later on sent his children to study in St. Petersburg. He loved, naturally, Russian writers like Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, but Gogol had a special place in his heart and mind. As a matter of fact, Janáček had started thinking about writing music based on Gogol's tale of Taras Bulba, defined, by the way, by Hemingway as one of the 10 greatest books of all times, as early as 1905. Janáček places the accent on 3 episodes of the life of the Cossack leader, all of them evolving around death. The death of his sons, Andrei and Ostap, and his own. They are in fact 3 symphonic poems framed under the title Rhapsody for Orchestra, a form that traditionally is a one-movement piece. The first movement focuses on the death of Andrei, Taras Bulba's first son, who, in love with the daughter of a Polish general, becomes a traitor and goes fighting into the enemy ranks. The father confronts his son in battle, renounces him, and kills him. The movement begins with a soothing melody played by the English horn representing Andrei's vision of his lover. Janáček's peculiar way of treating the orchestra and the harmony starts right away. Look at the first chord. It's F-sharp minor, but we know that for sure only at the end of the first bar. The chord is built from the ground up, a low F-sharp in the basses and cellos in octaves, then the third of the chords in the violas and second violins, again in octaves, then the first violins with the F-sharp and the A, very close together. The fifth is missing. The strings begin with this spaced out chord, just a split of a second before the entrance of the English horn, who, by the way, starts on the 9th of the chord, the G sharp. Only at the end of the bar we get our C sharp, the 5th of the chord. Have you noticed something? This music does not begin. When we start hearing it, it has already begun somewhere else. We've been catapulted into a different universe altogether. The music simply is, and we just turn the volume up. In this beginning, Andrei thinks about his lover, but this does not sound like a love song. It's more mournful than anything else. Janáček throws us inside Andrei's conscience, and his troubles are punctuated by dissonant bells. And the organ has a prominent solo part. All the turmoil that we experience in this quicksand type of beginning explores Andrei's internal and intimate battle. Notice how the lovely theme is passed between one instrument and another, reaching as low as a solo double bass. The love scene is transformed. The exact same elements now acquire totally different character, kind of spooky. And the phrasing gets very interesting and intricate. We start with a simple 4-bar phrasing, but once we get accustomed to it, Janáček throws it all in the air. We go to 2-bar phrasing, then 2, then 2 and 3, then 2 and 2, and so on. The unpredictability of this phrasing adds tension and drama to the music. This is unwritten but traditional. 1 bar before number 4, make a rallentando and conduct that bar in 3. This is done in order to establish a clear tempo at the adagio, which by the way is in 2, while keeping the D-sharpened violins as part of the new phrase. We're thrown back to the love scene, more serene, with a hint of passion between the two lovers. But it's just a dream. The cymbals hit with a wooden drumstick prevent us from sliding back into it. We try to go back, but an ominous music tells us otherwise. We try again, but there's no chance. The dream turns into a nightmare. The trombones introduce presumably Taras Bulba. Fierce battle begins, and we witness father and son tragically confronting each other. The battle is underlined by the bells and the off accents that trample the regularity of the rhythm, and of course the dynamics going from forte to sforzato to fortissimo to sforzatissimo. Triumphal line of the trumpets takes us to Andrei's death. Then silence, dramatic silence, suspense. There's a brief reprise of the love theme. Was it all a dream? The horns with sordines, with the battle rhythm, tell us otherwise. The dream is over with the final presto, punctuated once more by those bells. By the way, notice how the bells play always the same 3 notes throughout the piece, anticipating from the beginning the tragic end. Janáček's music can be rather challenging to digest at first hearing, but once you pass through the first apparent barrier and start looking at the chords and at the music as musical depiction of the character's thoughts and words, a new world opens up. The oniric dimension pervades this piece, even when reality lashes in bombastically. It's unsettling, and that's the magnetic power of a composer that was once looked at as an eccentric provincial, and it is now regarded as one of the most creative figures of his time. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button right below this video and ring the bell so you will get notified every time a new video comes out. Let me know in the comments what you think about this piece and if you have any suggestions for future videos, and I will see you next week with another episode of Conducting Pills when we will focus on Dvorak's 7th Symphony. Till then, bye bye.